And now, it's time for the Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin.
Hello, listeners. Is your month of May as busy as mine is? This is always one of the busiest times of the year, but of course I try to fit in some time for reading too. That's what bookworms do. If you enjoy stories that you can really sink down into, you're going to enjoy today's guest. Joanna Davidson Politano writes tales of the overlooked and undervalued, set in a Gothic backdrop of mystery and intrigue. She's won awards and acclaim for her historical novels, and I'm a big fan too. She's also a wife and mom and lives in the woods near Lake Michigan. Before we begin, please take a moment to follow me on Facebook or Instagram to find out who our next author guests will be. I really enjoy connecting with authors and introducing you as readers to stories you will love. You can also keep up with my own writing journey there and hear all my latest news. Now, let's bring in our guest. Welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
So your book, The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House, just recently released. Can you tell us about this story?
Sure. This is a different thing for me. This is a little bit steampunk vibe, which means that there's some gadgets and gears and inventions and things like that. It's not too technical, but it is a bit of an Alice in Wonderland feel. So basically a heroine finds out that she inherits a house, and she's kind of an engineer mind. So she inherits all these gadgets that are halfway finished and patents that are a big mess, and so she's got to straighten that out. And she also finds out that there are several other people who believe they've inherited the house as well. And it's a sinking financial ship, and so she's got a lot of stuff to deal with. And all of the staff think that she's the one who has killed the uncle who owned the house. So another complication.
So she has lots of things stacked up against her.
Mm-hmm.
So a story about a contested will always makes me think of Charles Dickens' classic Bleak House. Were you at all inspired by that tale, or is that just a coincidence?
You know, I have read that book, and I don't know, I think that the length of probate in Victorian England I took from that book. But I think in general I'm inspired by a lot of Dickens' collective works. So not specifically, but I'm sure it fed into it.
Yes, I can see that as a kind of as a little tone in your novels. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
And with all the inventions in this novel, is that something that you are interested in yourself, or how did you research that side of the story?
That's a funny question. Actually, I know very little about mechanical things and the way things work, but my husband's an engineer. We're complete opposites, and we normally don't have like the same expertise on anything. So I was able to sit down and say, hey, explain alternating current to me. Explain hydraulics. How does this work? And he lit up and he explained all of this stuff, and it was so much fun. So when our kids went to bed in the evenings, we'd sit down, and he found like these Lego hydraulics kits and stuff like that. And he would just show me how all of this stuff worked, and he'd explain it. And we'd kind of work through what inventions should be in the house, what inventions were actually in the house that I was basing it on, and how they would work and function, and, you know, how the character would operate them. And then he read the book afterwards before I turned it into my publisher to make sure I had all the details right. So he was my main source of inspiration and intelligence.
Well, that is fascinating. What a wonderful way to get to work with him and get to blend your gifts together.
Yeah, it was such a bonus. It was fun.
In your book that released last year, The Elusive Truth of Lily Temple, your heroine is a silent film actress. Are you a fan of silent or classic films?
I honestly didn't know a whole lot about this era of silent film until I started researching it. I've always enjoyed old classic movies, the black and whites, and even some silent films. But this was unique because these are like minute and a half, 3-minute long films. And they were primarily done as like stunts. So like illusionists were the ones who were producing them. So they were almost like a sleight of hand, and the way they would physically manipulate the film would make it look like some kind of optical illusion. It was really neat. So they would have, you know, a train going into a tunnel, and it would come out as a bus. And really they're just splicing together two different films on 2 different days. Or they'd have a man look like he was taking off his head and putting it on the table and having a conversation with himself, and things like that were just all the way they would splice and mask and things like that on the film themselves. My grandpa was both a photographer and a magician, and so I think I drew a lot of inspiration from the way he did his work.
That's so interesting. The way that they do things now, where we are today, that would not be something that would be as interesting as it was back then when all of this was brand new.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the special effects that we have now, like, got their start in this era when they just had to physically manipulate the film. We could do it now digitally, but a lot of it is the same idea.
It is really fascinating to learn where all of that comes from. I watched a film that was about I believe it was the 1936 Olympics that were in Berlin, and how even today, a lot of the way that the Olympics or sports in general were filmed were taken even from way back then, from 1936.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So your stories tend to have a bit of a Gothic feel. Do you enjoy reading Gothic stories yourself?
I do. My first foray into Gothic literature was Daphne du Maurier. Some of her books tend way too dark for me, but in general, I love that she can surprise me. And I love that, like, what's just beyond that shadow, the family mysteries and the secret tunnels and that whole idea, that has always intrigued me.
Yes. And I always love the deep themes of your novels. And the first book of yours I read was Finding Lady Enderley, and I was struck by the themes that went down even to your heroine's name. So when you start a new book, do you have a theme in mind, or does it develop as you write?
That's a good question. Honestly, I don't I don't really set out to teach. I set out to discover. So a lot of my themes start out as big questions that I'm throwing up at God and I don't understand the answer. I just kind of toss it his way and say, what are we going to do with this? What is this? What does this mean? And we kind of untangle it together and the theme kind of emerges organically, like from the story, just however it unfolds.
I love that. And what's the next writing project you're working on?
I'm currently working on a series that will be set in Cornwall, and I don't know a whole lot yet, but it will be at least 3 to 4 books.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. This will be your first series, right?
Yes, I've done all standalone so far, but this is going to be a series that's all going to revolve around the same house in Cornwall on the coast.
Okay. And of course, if it's set in Cornwall, then I have to ask, was it inspired by Poldark?
No, actually, I've watched Poldark and loved it very much, but this will be a completely different feel, less of the mining and the family dynamics and that kind of thing, and more, I don't know, I guess just the people and the culture and the general stories that I have
Right.
set in other parts of England.
Okay. Well, that's just funny because it seemed like there was Poldark, and then all of a sudden there was a lot of other things that were popping up that were set in Cornwall over the past few years.
Yes, I just really, really like the history of Cornwall. A lot of the religious things that went on and there was smuggling and just a whole lot of really unique history there.
Have you always wanted to be an author?
I've always been a storyteller. It's just been since I was in early grade school. I was a storyteller, both written and verbal, and I was just fascinated by the effect a story could have. I wrote down stories when I was in second grade of all the kids who got picked on, and I kind of made them into superheroes. And those stories started circulating, and like it kind of caused some chaos in the classroom, and the dynamics between all the different people, all the popular kids versus the bullies versus the picked on kids. And I was just like in awe of how much impact a story could have.
Mm.
And so I have always been writing kind of in the background. But then I came back to novel writing as an adult and I just fell in love with it.
Yes, and that's a great lead into my next question, which is what is your favorite part of the writing process?
I would say drafting is the hardest, but also the most rewarding because I have no idea where the story's going and I have no idea where God's going to take it. So I get to see everything with fresh eyes for the first time. But I also love the rewrites because that's kind of where the magic happens.
Hmm.
Not literal magic, but just, that's where it starts to take on a shine and a glow and the pieces come together and I start to see really cool connections and themes coming out of the woodwork that just weren't in the first draft.
So you would say you're a pantser more than a plotter then?
Absolutely. I wish that was not true. I did try to plot my fourth book out of 8, and I spent months creating this perfect outline with no plot holes. And then I was like 2 chapters in, and I realized that the characters were totally not doing what I had in the plot. Like, that just didn't fit. Once I saw them on paper,
Uh-huh.
it didn't work. And so I was like, well, all right, I guess this doesn't work for me.
Yes. So, for any storytellers who might be listening, and specifically those who have a story in their hearts but don't know where to start, or those who are early in their writing journey, what words of advice or encouragement might you have for them?
Well, I'll tell you, I guess, 2 things. The first thing is very, very simply just delight in what you're doing. Delight in the act of storytelling. Don't try to sell it. Don't try to be impressive. Don't worry about what's trending or selling or let the internal editor take over. Don't worry about what the finished product will look like. Just enjoy it. Because the more you enjoy it, the more people reading it are going to enjoy it. There's some sort of sparkle that comes to it when you're having fun. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is the best writing advice I ever got was from a mentor, a friend of mine, Alan Arnold. He worked for Thomas Nelson for a lot of years, and he said there's a difference between writing about God, writing for God, and writing with God. That made all the difference in shifting my heart in the right direction.
I love Alan Arnold's teachings. He's so good at speaking just to the heart of what creative people need.
Oh, yes, very much.
What are some of the delights in your life besides writing?
Well, my kids are so much fun. We homeschool them, and so they're, all day I get to spend with them. We adventure, we climb trees, we read books together, we go mud puddle splashing. We have lots of fun. And I don't know, we just have a lot of fun together. We even like kind of tell stories in like a round robin way and laugh a lot. We do Mad Libs. So they're my adventure buddies.
Yes. And so, how do you balance being a work from home, homeschooling mom, and an author?
It's constantly shifting because my kids' needs change like year by year. When they're babies, they have a long nap time, so I would use that as my writing time. And now that they're a little bit older, my oldest is 11, they have some independent work that they do, and that's when I write. But, like I said, it constantly shifts. Sometimes I get up real early in the morning and write. But the best thing that I've ever been able to do, well, I guess 2 things. Number 1 is hold my expectations real loosely. So if things shift, if, a kid wakes up early or needs me more or is sick, I don't really worry about the fact that I'm not getting any writing done that day. I figure that's what God has planned for the day. And the second thing is I try to keep them very separate. So like when I'm a mom, I am only a mom. I am completely 100% present for my kids. And then when I'm a writer, it's only maybe an hour or 2 in the day, sometimes 3 if I'm lucky, if I get up early. But I put on headphones and I just sink into my story world and focus on that. And that is sort of my recharge time.
So, if a listener were to venture to your website, they would see in bold letters, "Hi, I'm Joanna and I love Jesus." How did you meet Jesus, and can you tell us what he means to you?
I grew up in a home that believed in God and went to church. So I'm sure I learned about him from a very early age. But I think when I was in my early 20s, he sort of pursued me, is the only way I can describe it. It was just, I don't know, something clicked in my brain where, that verse that says that the scales were removed from their eyes and things like
Yes.
that, where he just showed me very personally, like what kind of a sinner I was, what kind of a God he was, the gap between those two that is called grace, and that was, he actually wanted to connect with me. And I guess I don't really have words to describe the experience, but it was, I don't know, it was just one of those things that it couldn't deny that God was pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it really, really difficult to keep living the same selfish way. And it made it difficult to, ever think that he didn't exist or that he wasn't for me.
Yeah. And so then he's just continued to work in your life and draw you closer and closer to him.
Yeah, honestly, I think that stories is kind of like I've said this before, but stories is the language that he and I speak together. It's like how he gets through to me. And it's like, I don't know, I guess how I make sense of the world. It's all in story format.
Uh-huh.
And if he's got to get through to my heart about something that I'm being stubborn about, it comes out in my stories.
Is there a scripture that has been meaningful to you recently?
Oh, goodness. The whole book of Isaiah, for starters. I don't think there's a specific one. I also love the book of Psalms
Mm-hmm.
and David's whole life in Chronicles and Kings. I don't know. I think what I live my life by is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all
Yes.
these things will be added to you. That's kind of my true north, I guess.
Yes, that's a good one. The whole Matthew 6 chapter is so good. And that's one thing that I've been thinking about over the past year or so. As I recently got married, and my husband is completely blind. And so we are, navigating this path together for the first time. And, that he has challenges, of course, that come with that. But he's also, a whole person. He's wonderful and he loves the Lord and all of these things. But it does have, it's not the way that I anticipated that my life would play out. And so
Oh,
seeking
sure.
the Lord and all of these things as we're figuring out finances and where we're going to live and all of these things. It's wonderful to know that as we seek God together, He is going to order all of our steps and make all of that plain as we continue to put Him first.
Beautifully said. And what an adventure. That is a huge life shift in many ways.
Yes.
So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. We just celebrated 2 months of marriage, so we're early on in this journey, but we're excited
Oh,
about what
wow.
God has for us.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're newlyweds.
Yes. How can readers connect with you?
My website, jdpstories.com. Halfway down, I think there's a newsletter sign up, and that's where I have a lot of my latest news. I also am on Instagram and Facebook. And then I have a reader group on Facebook called Once Upon a Story.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll get some people to come in and check those out. And if they have not read your stories yet, they can find them and become a fan like I am.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Listeners, please do go to jdpstories.com to find out more about Joanna and her books. Like she said, her recent release is The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House. So that's the one with the steampunk vibe, a clockmaker as a heroine, and her inheritance as she is searching for a place to belong. And then she finds out that she's inherited this house, but things are not what they seem. And she arrives at this house to find that there's pirates and there's mysteries and there's all of these inventions. And I hope that you will go and check that one out. We also talked about The Elusive Truth of Lily Temple, which, aside from the silent film aspect that we talked about, also features an FBI agent who is searching for a certain gem that Lily is known to wear. So where did she get this gem? What does it have to do with her past? And where is it now? So these two form an unlikely alliance as they are looking for this gem and also looking into Lily's past and her real identity. I also mentioned Finding Lady Enderley, which is where a young woman is plucked from the slums of London and put into a place where she is lauded as being someone she is not. She is standing in the place of someone else, and as the story unfolds, you find out more about who she really is. And as the circumstances unfold and the different characters, you're drawn deeper and deeper into caring about this person and who she really is. Which, now that I think about it, does seem to be a large theme of many of Joanna's books. I also loved Joanna's award-winning novel, The Lost Melody, which features a concert pianist who ends up going undercover at an asylum to find out what happened to a patient who was once there. And the asylum says that this person was never a patient there. But Vivian, the heroine, she has enough vague memories that she is determined to find out what happened to this person. And again, there's just really beautiful themes that are woven throughout. And in this one was probably the one where I was most concerned about the main character's safety. Like, what is going to happen to this person as she is in this asylum undercover? And is she going to come out okay? So if you want to find that out, you're going to have to check out The Lost Melody. Joanna's debut novel is called Lady Jane Disappears, and this is another one that I felt very strong Dickens vibes from because it starts out in debtor's prison, which would be familiar for anyone who knows Dickens' Little Dorrit. So what happens to our main character after she ventures outside debtor's prison and as she is actually writing a serial novel that's being published, and she decides to include some of the new people she is meeting in her serial novel, and as you might can imagine, that does not go well for her. So again, there's lots of mystery and intrigue here with Lady Jane Disappears. I have not had the pleasure of reading all of Joanna's books, but I know A Midnight Dance and The Love Note are two that I've heard very highly recommended. They are on my TBR, my to be read list. But I don't like to call it a list or even a stack. I like to call it a TBR universe. It is vast. There are so many books out there that I would love to read, and these are definitely on them. She has another one too, A Rumored Fortune, that I don't want to miss mentioning. It's another one that I have not yet read. If you've already read Joanna's books and are looking for those with a similar feel, I would suggest Michelle Greep and Jamie Jo Wright. I enjoy Michelle's stories, which might have the Gothic feel, but always have a prominent faith theme, bringing light and hope. I confess I've never read Jamie Jo Wright because she sounds a little too scary for my personal taste, but I know a lot of readers love some delicious spookiness, and so that is definitely their style. Jamie Jo herself is a wonderful human being, and I have enjoyed the time that I've spent with her as a person and as an author, and the same with Michelle. She is also just absolutely wonderful and so funny. On the subject of author friends, I'd like to take the opportunity to continue to promote the American Christian Fiction Writers Conference, which is coming up September 4th through 6th in Springfield, Missouri. And if you've listened the past few weeks, we have highlighted this conference. It's just a wonderful conference where authors can get together. You can make friends not only with other authors, but you'll get to meet with industry professionals as well. You'll have the chance to meet one-on-one with them and tell them about your story. You'll also be uplifted by the worship time because they take the Christian in the name of their organization very seriously, American Christian Fiction Writers. And like Joanna said, you want to be writing with God. And they really do an excellent job encouraging you as a believer and bringing your faith into your stories. They want to see fiction that changes lives, and they want to be a part of that. So I highly recommend the ACFW conference. It's going to be in Springfield, Missouri, and I'm especially excited about that because that is very close to where I live. And so it will be great to go and see my writer friends and be taught and encouraged. There will be workshops there on all different kinds of topics and all different kinds of levels of experience. Whether you are just beginning and you are wondering, what can I do with this story that's on my heart? Where do I go? What would be the best way to go about that? Well, one way you might could find some direction and get some good tips would be by coming to the conference and taking that beginner track and learning from those in the industry, from those who are authors or editors or publishers those who have experience and can point you in the right direction. They also have tracks for those who are a little bit farther along. Maybe you've already written the story and you're wondering, what do I do now? You can come and find out the answer to that question. Or if you are an established author, they have tracks for you too. You'll be able to make friends as well. I have met so many wonderful authors, so many authors that I have met and then who have come and been on this radio show. And you've heard them and you've heard our conversations and you've gotten to know them a little bit. So just being among the author community is so amazing. They're wonderful, wonderful people. And I am excited just to see so many of them soon, coming up in September. So for more information about that, you can go to acfw.com. Meanwhile, I am continuing to line up guests for this show that I'm excited to bring to you. I'm excited to chat with next week's author, who has written some of my very favorite releases from the past few years, and I cannot wait to talk with her. I can't wait to introduce her to you, or so you can get to know her better. And to be among the first to know who that is, please follow me on Facebook or Instagram at author Erin Mifflin. And if you'll take a moment to go to authorerinmifflin.com, I would also appreciate it if you would sign up for my monthly newsletter. You'll receive a link where you can listen to all of the author interviews that I've done in the past. And then I'll also be showing up in your inbox once a month with book reviews, personal news, a little devotional thought, recipes, all these kinds of things to connect with you and hopefully let you get to know me better as someone who is hoping to get my historical romance books published one day. We're waiting on God's timing and looking forward to what He has there. But if you would like to follow my journey, that's authorerinmifflin.com. Until next time, happy reading!
Join us next week for another episode of The Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin. If you'd like to find out more about author Erin Mifflin, visit her Facebook and Instagram accounts.